that we have actually done it in public, so I apologize in advance. We have started getting some cases, both at the district attorney's office, that were starting to be of more and more concern to me regarding what I have called it as sexploitation. It was touched on by Nola this morning about those cases where kids are showing up on the internet, they're playing video games, or they're on social media platforms, and they're being approached. And they are trading those kinds of images and so forth, and that kind of relationship that's developing. One of the reasons why this was important to me, not only because we're seeing those cases, if you know me well, I play video games, a lot of video games. It is one of the only things that sort of takes all of my mental facility to keep track of and so forth, and my daughter, who's 12, plays video games with me, and I just saw so much vulnerability to be caught up in something like this, and then we started seeing cases like it in the office. So I approached my friend Anne, who's in the FBI. She will not tell you this. She's also a trained attorney, was recruited by the FBI and is here today, and I wanted to do something with her, and so we put this kind of presentation together. It's our hope that it can start going into schools. Do we have anyone from our school district here? Good, so I can talk a little bit of trash. But that has been a little bit of a hard gate to get through, to talk with students. But as we move forward, I'm hoping to get more and more traction, because I think this kind of information is really important to both our students and their parents and staff and so forth. So I'm going to let Anne, Special Agent Hawkins, introduce herself and get us started.
Thank you. As I told you earlier, that this morning I did a 3-hour presentation to cops for a crisis negotiation, and I'm sure all of you have spoken to cops before, and it's just come on guys, give me something. It's 105 slide PowerPoint. We're gonna need something here. It's gonna be a minute. But so I can already tell this is much better than being clapping already. Very excited. My name is Ann Hawkins. I am the Supervisory Special Agent for the North Bay out of San Francisco Division. So our division is essentially from Monarch County to the Oregon border, mostly coast, but to include some other inland counties. And my squad covers all criminal threats, from white collar to homicide on federal land, from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Oregon border, to include also Napa Lake. So we cover 7 counties. So we have a pretty big territory. I have agents that sit in Santa Rosa, and I have agents that sit up in Eureka. One thing that we've seen immense increase of sextortion cases over the past, let's just say since COVID started and everybody went inside and online. And so it's a concern to us. It became such a concern that our headquarters put together our own operation for it, because we were starting to have a high amount of juvenile males starting to commit suicide, and they were the target. So we'll talk about that a little bit in the slide presentation. My background, I started the Bureau in 2010. I worked the majority of my career in human trafficking, and then ended up promoting, and here I am. But this will still be my love, will always be crimes with children and human trafficking, even if they make me work other things. So we'll begin. A little bit about our headquarters. Our headquarters out of Virginia is the Crimes Against Children unit in human trafficking. We go through different name changes. Sometimes it's VCAC, sometimes it's Catch 2, whatever the vibe of the year is. We work sextortion, child abduction, child sex tourism. I spent some time in Thailand working child sex tourism. So fun fact, there are 2 federal statutes that we can arrest U.S. citizens out of country where there has been no jurisdiction set in the United States, and one of them is child sex tourism. So if we have a U.S. citizen who's in another country buying children for sex, we can still arrest them and prosecute them, even though nothing touched the United States jurisdictionally. So that's a fun tool. Child sex abuse material, which used to be called child pornography, internet predators, human trafficking, both sex and labor. So we do work labor trafficking as well, and then international parental kidnappings. So our mission, right, very simply, counter threats of abuse and exploitation of children, provide a rapid and proactive response to rescue or recover child victims, and reduce vulnerability of children in in-person, online sex exploitation and abuse. And online is really where we're starting to see the ramp up, and again, since 2020, in talking about sextortion specifically. So let's talk about what is sextortion, right? First and foremost, it is a criminal act that we do have good state and federal statutes to counteract. Talking to kids, what do we want? As the DA said, we made this for basically high school students. So what do we want high school students to know? We want them to know that it is a mechanism of controlling, harassing, and embarrassing the victims. That the people who perpetrate this are pros at what they do, right? They're masters of manipulation. There's a reason how come they're able to be successful in this. We see both males and females being exploited, but just differently, right? Female exploitation looks generally like more CSAM. The subjects want the girls to keep producing more CSAM of themselves, of family, of friends, and what they have access to. They can then sell those images online. With our male victims, it's straight money. They just want money. They want gift cards. They want Bitcoin. They want cash app transactions. It's a monetary job for them. It has nothing to do with the individual who they're exploiting. It is just a way to make money. And a lot of our subjects come from foreign countries where that $100, that $200 is a significant amount. And they get one kid a day, 2 kids a day, then they've made a lot of money. Sextortion is a form of sexual exploitation, absolutely. And they do it by trying to expose the material to family and friends and to known or unknown individuals. We have subjects who are known to the victims, and we have subjects who are unknown. But our concern right now are the unknown, because that's just pervasive. We don't have a lot of known subjects, There aren't a lot of individuals that are doing this on a grand scale where they know their victims. The subjects who know their victims are the one-offs, right? It is a relationship that went bad. It is somebody who doesn't like somebody else, but it's not that grand scale. Our unknown subjects, our subjects who are targeting the unknown victims it's the job to them. So what does sextortion look like? Contacts initiated. Hi, you're cute. How's your day going? Right? Over video games, over Instagram, over Snap, over whatever the latest app is. I'm sure I don't even have the latest app. Well, I 100% do not have the latest app. But it's over a platform where kids are getting on in the middle of the night at 2 a.m., when they're on vacation, chatting, had a bad day, just looking for someone to talk to, right? We all know that. It's the story, right? They're just looking for somebody to connect with. They're just looking for somebody to say, hey, you're cute. How's it going? How are you doing today? Just some few questions about how is your life? Great, now we've established contact, and now I can manipulate you, right? And then it becomes, you're really cute. Can I have a photo with you? And we're going to focus a little on the boys, because those are our heightened victims right now. Girls have learned, so good job us females. We're doing better at this. Boys are new to this. That they're saying, hey, can I get a photo of you? And the boy says, great, of course you want to date me, because I'm amazing. And then they say, oh, great, can I get a picture of something else? And they say, sure. And they send a photo, and they said, what I really want is a photo of your face and your penis together. And the boys, of course, were like, well, obviously. And they send it, right? And now that you have that photo of the entire person, that's your exploitation, because that's the embarrassing part. The face alone, not embarrassing. A penis alone, not embarrassing. Nobody's gonna know that's yours. Hopefully. But the entire photo, right, that is where we're seeing the exploitation take place. Then okay, great. I want a $100 gift card from Apple, from Target, from Amazon, whatever. Or I see that your friends list is not private. So I know all your friends' usernames now, or all your friends' handles. I'm gonna send to your friends and family if you do not send me the money. And a 17-year-old boy at 1 a.m., not a lot of options. Not gonna wake up mom and dad, or a parental figure, or guardian, or whomever he lives with. Not gonna call a friend and be like, dude, what do I do? And it's like, great, I'll give you $100 if you leave me alone. He sends $100. And then it's a circle. Great, you gave me 100, now I want 200. Now I want 300. How much can I get out of you, right? And it's the fear and threat of a teenage boy or girl being embarrassed by this photo, which is a very real threat if you're at that age. Especially, we do see this across the gamut. There is not a group exempt from this. We have victims come in who are from Marin County, whose parents are famous, that you would know their parents, and they're so afraid that their parents are going to find out that they're sending them money. We have kids in Silicon Valley who both parents are in tech, and this would ruin their life. It would completely shatter them, and they're the ones most susceptible to suicide. We have victims come in who are from Napa County, whose parents only speak Spanish, who they say, please, please, please do not tell my parents because I'm going to get in so much trouble, but I need to tell somebody. So we run the gamut of everything.
So the cases that we have seen in Napa County, they have been primarily male victims, or that has been our experience. And it's that moment of vulnerability that took place with the victim and this person, whoever it is, online, whether they met them through Instagram or met them through some kind of social media app or video game. And in that moment of vulnerability, provided them this piece of collateral, essentially. And then the threat comes in, right? I'm gonna distribute it to your church, to your pastor, to everyone at school. I'm going to share it with all of your friends list on a particular social media app, and I'm going to shame and embarrass you. And so I'm 50 years old. I don't like to talk to my 85-year-old mother about things. I cannot imagine the kind of vulnerability that must exist when you are a teenager, when you're still learning about your sexuality, about your body, to have that held over their head. And again, with our female survivors, we're finding that they're asking for more and more imagery or more and more acts that are taking place so they can be sold. And with our boys, it's that money aspect of it, right? So some of the red flags that we're looking for, and again, these are things that you can share either with your children, with children that you are interacting with, is that the person turns the conversation to adult right away. Right? So first there might be some conversation about how are you and how's your day, and soon it becomes very crude and very direct about what is wanted by the particular victim. Sometimes you'll have misspelled words or bad grammar. Now if you're me, I'm not going to date you if you have bad grammar and misspelled words, right? But a lot of those things are missed, right? And they are many times in the same way that you can identify a phishing email and you're looking for that correct spelling. This is another kind of indicator that things are not going the way you think that they're going. The person does not have a working camera. They will give all kinds of excuses why I want to be able to see you, but I don't have a camera that works so that we can't have an actual FaceTime conversation, or we can't mutually have that kind of conversation. And when we're talking to kids, the question is, well, why? Well, it's because they're not who they say they are. They say that they're, this particular kind of an age of woman, when actually, and we'll show you some pictures of who they actually are. The conversations don't add up. The profile has limited photos, right? They have very superficial social media presence. The profile has a low followers or friends, and the contact is fast-paced. What we're finding, that's the royal we. That is in conversation with Anne and her telling me what it is that they're finding, is that many times there'll be a bunch of different windows open where the exploiter is having multiple conversations at the same time, trying to see where they can get in. So that the content is moving very quickly in that conversation, in that use of fear tactics. And that choice of fear tactics is what that exploiter is seeing is of interest to that child, right? So if that child has a lot of photographs of them with their church youth group, if they have them with the 4-H club, if they're very involved in their athletics, then suddenly it's not just that I'm going to show your mom and dad, I'm going to distribute this to your water polo team or your swim team. And then suddenly there's this feeling of oppression by the survivor.
one thing some of our subjects have gotten smart with is that they know they can only ask for so much if the victim doesn't have a person to look at. So they started hiring women. She wants your photo, right? Does she? Does this person actually want your photo? No, she doesn't. So who have we arrested? So the top three are all from Nigeria. We've been working with the country of Nigeria law enforcement. They don't want this stigma associated with them anymore. So they work really closely with federal law enforcement across the world and the United States to help us go after the worst of the worst in their country. We'll talk about that in a second. And the bottom three are American subjects who are doing this as well, right? None of them are the female. So what we've started working with is that Nigeria is prosecuting the subjects who have exploited American individuals from their home, from their business, essentially, and helping us to extradite those who, as a result of their actions, the teen has committed suicide or the victim has committed suicide. Some of them have encouraged it and have said, great, you're going to kill yourself, just give me all your money first anyway. So Nigeria has worked really closely with the Bureau at the FBI to hold those accountable who have committed this against teenagers. I'm saying teenagers, so the male victims are 16 to 25-year-old, 16 to 25-year-olds. Our female victims skew younger, right? They skew younger. They tried to go after the 12 to 17-year-old male victims in the beginning, but 12 to 15-year-old boys don't have money. And so from our female victims, since they want images, great, you don't need anything. They just need a working camera. And they need not to have the ability to say no. With our male victims, they kind of found the sweet spot of 16 to 25. And that's who they're exploiting. My secretary, my office manager, he is 20, when he started last year, he was 22. And the number of conversations I had with him of, all right, I know you play video games. I find out you've been one of these victims. Like, you and I are going to have a conversation. If you ever send a photo, you need to come to me first, and we'll handle it together. So you're in our age group. You're an adult. You're a 16 and 25-year-old male in our age group. Like, you are not going to be a victim of this, right? But also, why do they turn their attention to boys? Because they're boys, right? I know there are a few men in the room, so I apologize to the three of you that I see. We kind of expect them to do stupid things, right? So it's not, what we try to get the point across to them is, it's okay. Your parents get, when you're 16 to 25, you're going to do dumb things. We expect it, but how do we prevent it from happening, and how do we move past it? And that's our goal. When we intake these cases, our goal is, it's okay, it's expected, it's going to happen. Let's not ruin your life over it, because in the grand scheme of things, this is not that big of a deal to me. And I understand the trauma that comes along with it, but if you wish you could take them, move them 20 years in the future, right, this isn't that big of a deal.
So when I asked Anne to put together some of her information from the feds, I said, what's really going to be important, I think, particularly for our Napa parents, is for them to realize that this is happening to our kids. And Anne was able to put together some of these quotes. Of course, I didn't bring my glasses up here, so this is going to be fun. All right, so one of them out of Sonoma, and this is one that had a Nigerian exploiter. I was so embarrassed, but told my parents and blocked him. And that is really the best advice I think that you will hear today, or that we can give to kids, is that shut it all down. And for the same reason that I explained to you that exploiter might have a number of different windows open, are they really interested in embarrassing Allison? No, they want what it is that they want. And as soon as that becomes difficult, as soon as you shut down your social media, you make private your friends list, you don't get back on the computer, they're going to move along to an easier target, right? These are criminals that want what it is that they're asking for. They're not going to They're not in the business of having relationships and getting their feelings hurt when you shut everything down. I sent a photo I knew I shouldn't have, but I did. I would rather lost my money than ruin my life. This was a case out of Napa County, and that scammer was unknown. A mother of a preteen boy in Mendocino County, exploiters told him if he did not pay, she was going to send the photos out with a message saying he was a rapist. That is another fact pattern that we've seen, is not just that I'm going to send this out, but I'm going to tell people that you were trying to have sex with or meet with a minor, right? So they're going to out them as maybe a rapist or maybe as a pedophile. And that's what I'm going to tell your church, or that's what I'm going to tell your pastor or tell your parents. The victim tried deleting and blocking the messages, but they continued to contact the victim from various accounts. That was one out of Mendocino County. My son was sextorted in 2021 through his social media. Thankfully, he told us about it and we were able to talk it through and make sure that he was okay. That is absolutely the gold standard of what we would want our survivors to do, which is to tell us as parents or to tell a trusted adult. And many of us in this room may be that trusted adult. Marin County. I want to bring this to the attention of Congress and change laws to make this harder to do to children. If I do remember correctly, this was someone who, if we revealed their name, you would absolutely recognize who this was. But this mother said the photos the victim had sent were put into a wanted poster with a banner in red, white, and white saying he had raped a 5-year-old girl to death. That was the threat. His genitals, face, and cell phone number were displayed on the poster. One of the things that I want to tell you, many of us in this room are prominent, and I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I mean that we hold positions in the community where there is a lot of trust. Many of us are quoted in the newspaper. Many of us have our photos in the newspaper a lot. And you know what? Our children are focused on because they know that they could say to my 12-year-old is Fiona, you know what, Fiona? I'm going to ruin your mother's career. And now you've just put all of that, and she's 12. She has no idea what that means or the gravity of what it is. She has no way of processing where she could get help. But I want to be very clear for those of us in the audience who have these kinds of positions, be mindful that they may very specifically come after people for whom they believe that they can get more of because their parents might be prominent or hold positions of trust in the community. Now that terrifying note.
A couple of additional ones. So in 2022 in Napa County, a teenage girl was at school and texted her mother after sending inappropriate photos to a male adult. He threatened to expose the photos to her school. They began talking on a video game, moved to Instagram and then to Discord, and that's incredibly common, is to start on one platform and move to other platforms going forward, especially ones that can't be traced back. Money was exchanged through Apple Pay, and then her mother reported to law enforcement. Our biggest ask is that if this happened, please, please, please report it. Like most incidents, if you're a minor, even if you're an adult in this situation, you will not be in trouble by us, by the DA's office, by law enforcement. We're not going to judge. We see too much of this judge, right? This is not, we know this is not a you thing, this is a thing. Just as with elder fraud, just like mortgage fraud, so many frauds, this is just another type of fraud, but unfortunately the impact on the victim is so much more traumatizing than losing money.
One thing I can add too, when I do speak to schools, one of the schools I speak to, Justin, Sienna, and so forth, many times a student will raise their hand and say, but won't I be in trouble for creating, in their words, child pornography? And for those of you who are service providers, at least here in Napa County, that's not a thing. We treat them as children. We treat them as survivors, victims of crime. But that does seem to be a very real impediment for students, people under the age of 18, to come forward or to report those kinds of crimes.
And the last one was he sent a teenage boy in Napa County. He spent $450, told his mom, and it ended. The theme that we do see is once a trusted adult, a guardian, else who has a little bit more perspective of called life experience, once they get involved, a lot of times we do see this ending. It is a job. And so the last one is Marin County started a conversation, sent photos via Instagram, and again, close his account. That is, I know the DA mentioned it before, but our advice is that if this is happening, they will ask a few times, right? If you send money, they're gonna keep asking for money. But if you and we know this is so hard to do, we get it. Shut down your social media for a week, 2 weeks, right? They're gonna go away. So that is one thing we are trying to preach is shut it all down. Just shut it down and we'll get there, but make everything private.
Yeah, sure. So something for us to be looking for, and of course this is overarching for a lot of exploitation. We're looking for that withdrawal from family and friends. If you're living under that kind of stress that this could be happening to you, there is a tendency to withdraw. A drop in grades or other usual activity. They used to swim all the time, now they're not swimming anymore, they're less interested in school. An elevated sense of anxiety. And anxiety can show up, as all of us know who probably have a healthy amount of anxiety in our lives, that it can show up in lots of different ways, right? It can be oversleeping or undersleeping, overeating or undereating. I yawn a lot when I'm really anxious or nervous. I don't know, it's because I'm not breathing, right? Because I'm so nervous or anxious about things. They can have unexplained anger that's coming out because they're bearing this kind of burden or load that is, they're not to handle, they're not to be handling the worries of an adult. And it's the self-harming that really caught my attention. It's that many times, and it's something that you can easily Google. I don't necessarily recommend it, and I certainly don't recommend it when you're not feeling well. But if you're Googling this, the number of people who have ended their own life because they are at an age where they're overwhelmed by what they're being threatened with, and they see no other way out. That to me, of course, but got my attention because it is solvable. And with telling the right people and telling the trusted adult who knows what to do in situations like that, there are particularly our young men across the country that would be here today. So we're looking for those self-harming ideations or actions, that urgency to escape, to meet them, to meet their demands. So if you have a kid who suddenly has to go do something, has to go buy the gift card, has to get back online at a particular time, those things should be telling you something. And of course, all of those symptoms that come with trauma.
So does the level basically what they extort from that juvenile?
I'm sorry.
When they extort, like the amount of money, is that what determines the level of crime it is, or is it just the
No.
fact that they're extorting?
Just the fact of the extortion. It's not. It doesn't have a dollar value like theft. I think that's what you mean.
Yes.
Yes. Correct.
Everybody's favorite thing at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, stats. It's just so incredibly steep, and that's what I want you to take away from this. That in 2021 is the blue. Like, even if you don't want to read the numbers, that's fine. Just the number, just the colors, right? The blue in 2021 and 305 H cases are what the Bureau gives their our sextortion cases are 305 H cases because we randomly name things because we can be different. 2021 is blue, 2022 is red, and then 2023 is green. And just the vast, vast, vast uptick that we're seeing. We went through, so Guardian is our intake system, so if you call 1-800-FBI or tips.fbi.gov, in 2021 we had 83 sextortion call-ins. 2021, am I saying the numbers right? I'm so sorry. In 2023 we had 845. I mean, I don't math very well, but that's a lot. That's a lot. So that is the concern that we're having, is that it's such a steep increase. And we know we're only capturing a small amount. We know that the majority are not calling the FBI. We fully get that. But the fact that we have that many of teenagers calling the bureau, I think that says something. Like, that's a big issue. Because it's not their parents, and that's what we're finding. The majority of these aren't parents calling in. It's kids calling in. It's kids right after it happening finding tips on FBI online and immediately sending a tip. They'll put in there, like, I don't want to be contacted, I just needed to sort of tell somebody. And unfortunately for them, we're going to contact them, if anything, just to make sure that they're doing okay, more of a welfare check. But the fact that enough of these kids are now feeling secure enough to even let us know is only going up. And then again, our case openings, right? We're almost to, in 2023, we're almost with 3,700 case openings across the Bureau for this type of case, which again, we're only capturing a small amount, and that doesn't include local law enforcement's cases where we're working jointly or they're working as a completely separate investigation. Prevention, right? The best solution is prevention. When we talk to minors or college or high school, the number one thing that if they hear nothing else, here to keep everything private. Use your privacy settings. If people can't get access to your list of friends, your list of handles, then they don't have, you've taken off a huge avenue for them to exploit you with. If they don't know who to send the photos and videos to, then that brings it way down. I'm not saying that it can't still happen, but that is a huge, huge hurdle for them to jump. And I don't understand it. Because I feel like when we all got online, it was kind of like, okay, go to your privacy settings, make everything private, and now it's just not happening. So if nothing else, please, 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 have people make things private. And I get it, and I'm not trying to be friends on the internet at this point. I did that, I got a husband, we're good. That was my internet friend. But I get that when you're a teenager, you are trying to make those connections still. And so I understand how come you may not be private. However, that is leaving that open. Right, covering your webcam. And again, we talk about don't accept unknown friend requests, but if that is your goal online to meet friends, then we also understand that that's not a realistic request of us. But if you don't know the person, and what I say with all frauds, right, we have a lot of older children calling in for their adult parents. If you can't physically push the person, can't touch the person, you should not be sending them anything, right? Even if you can touch them, you should not be sending things. But if you can't physically touch that person, please do not send money to that person. And we tell that to our minors, and we also told that to our grandparents who are sending money as well. And then just general good safety, right? Don't click on links you don't know. Have antivirus software. Use a fake name, right? Just the general safety precautions on the internet.
So how you can help by being an ally, encouraging our affected to be speaking out and report the incident, reassuring them that it's going to be okay and that they are not going to be in trouble. When we have thought about going forward and talking to parents, we really emphasize the fact that their response really kind of sets the tone, right? So I was just telling this story the other day. My husband recently said that if someone ever did this to Fiona, I forget what it was, I would kill that guy. And I go, well, okay, like, I get your point, but please don't ever let her hear that. Because she may not tell us things, because you know who she's suddenly worried about? Not herself, but she's worried about what dad is going to do, and worried about the consequences that may happen to them. Many times, most of the time, when I was doing cases, we don't allow the parents to come into the courtroom when the child is testifying. Why is that? Because I'm just mean and don't want the parent there? No, because I made the mistake of allowing it once. And you know what that survivor did? Would answer and check to make sure that mom was okay. And check to make sure that mom was okay. So our response really sets the tone on their ability to tell us things. Right now, you can cry in the shower. Mark Haley, you can polish up your gun, but do whatever, right? But don't do that in front of her. because she's looking to us for the reasoned and measured response when things like that happen, where she's not worried that we are going to fly off the handle when we get the information that, notwithstanding all of the training that we may have done, our child does something like this, right? To be able to meet them without a rolled eye or an exasperation and say, you know what, here are the steps that we can take to help you get out from underneath this, and this isn't your burden to carry.
I feel like whether it's sextortion, human trafficking, whatever it might be, right? Whenever we talk to parents, it's give your kid a hug, tell them you love them, let's deal with the problem. How to report it? I feel like I've dropped it a few times, but I'll drop it again. 1-800-CALL-FBI. Tips on FBI.gov for the bureau side. There's also NetSmart, NCMEC, and then I don't think we actually. One thing we need to add is your guys.
Okay.
For the next time.
Okay, and I think we have a few minutes for questions and answers, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We've had these questions mostly for the FBI. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Hi. My program works with victims of crime, and often we come across reporting an incident, and there's so many avenues to report it, not only victim witness, but now FBI and local law enforcement. And I'm curious to know, like, where should we, like, does the FBI treat it differently than law enforcement? Do they communicate? Like, where should it start?
Anywhere, just report it, and we'll handle on the backside. So every time we need a reporting, the first thing we do is go to the local jurisdiction, whatever kind that may be. It might be the sheriff, might be a police, it might be whoever might be, the police department, and we ask them, has this been reported to you? Have you heard this? Do you have a case open? So for anything involving children, we always cross-report with child welfare, whatever that looks like for that county, and local law enforcement, to make sure that everybody is covered.
And then it automatically goes to DA?
We have a decision of who's gonna take it, and so if it's gonna be federal, we'll do it, and if it's gonna go local, then it will.
They give me all the crap and they No, there is a conversation that happens where we are contacted by the FBI, they lay out the case, sometimes we take it, and that decision making is really based on a number of variables. How egregious is the case? What is most convenient for the survivor and the survivor's family? Sometimes that's staying in Napa, sometimes that's going to San Francisco. Maybe this is a particularly egregious case and I can get more time, meaning more exposure in terms of punishment than the feds can. Sometimes the opposite is true. But what you are looking for are collaborations like this. You should be looking for your DAs, your law enforcement to have, like, I can call up Ann at any time. And that's what you're really looking for, is to make sure that there is a conversation that's happening. And then, yeah, we fight it out over who's going to take the case and why. And it happens. And I tease, but it's a very cooperative agreement, most of the time.
And then the follow-up is, then how involved is the service provider or the reporter who is working with the family or the child involved? Do they remove themselves after it gets there, or are they also like briefly involved in the process?
So I feel, it's not a loaded question, but it's an interesting question. I really feel like I am a trained trial lawyer. I am in charge of this aspect of getting justice. There's a reason why I'm not Shay. Like, I'm too mean to be Shay, right? And Shay's too nice to be mean. Shay is to provide healing and get them involved in resources and make sure that they understand all of the things that they have available to them. I am to make sure that we have people that are ready to go to court, that I am knowing my case and doing that. So my feeling is that you have this extraordinary position where you don't need to do investigation. Like, that's all on me. Like, I consider myself a professional worrier, right? Like, you pay me to worry about that part of it. And I want this survivor, no matter what happens to the criminal case, I want this survivor 10, 12, 15, 25 years from now. They're not going to be the same person they would have been had someone not been screwing around, but I want them to be the healthiest version of who they've become now. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I really feel like my job is to worry about the criminal case. And that's not survivors' jobs. It's not other kind of service provider jobs. I want you to do all the things you're beautifully gifted at doing that I'm not.
Same on the federal side is that we have victim service providers employed by the FBI, and their job is to make contact with the victim. But if they already have advocates for them, if they have a trust relationship with you, great. That's perfect. That's not my role. It's not. I can't do it all. You can't do it all. Allison can't do it all. Right? So we all have our roles, and if they have a trusted advocate that they like and want to keep working with, fantastic. We'll like as much as they're comfortable with, we're gonna bring you in. If they say tell them everything, we're gonna get you. You know what I mean? Like we'll put you to work. So, yeah.
Kind of a long question, but I'll piece it together. I think there's been 2 points that have been made by a lot of speakers today. Is that as advocates for survivors and victims, there's a lot that goes into trauma-informed care and how we support them. That's point 1. And then point 2 is that a lot of these discussions don't include or focus enough attention on male victims of sexual exploitation, abuse, and extortion. So I'm appreciative of everyone, including yourselves, who's spoken on that. And I'm wondering, because these are such like real life and very like tangible examples of things that are going on locally that I did not know about. And so, as I'm not sure if there are organizations here that work with young men and boys. My organization specifically works with young women and girls, and I'm wondering, do you, as a law enforcement agency and officials, work with kind of community-based organizations to offer trainings on this kind of information that do specifically work with young men and boys? Because I think that like factual information is what really gets people's attention, especially when kind of destigmatizing conversations about male victims. And so what does that look like for you? And do you have like partnerships or involvement, or do you offer trainings to organizations like that? Just because we're looking to expand services for young men and boys. And I think that this kind of information would be really, really beneficial for them.
I've seen an invite, and I'll speak anywhere. And I will say, and mine will be brief, and then, so I worked, most of my human trafficking experience was in San Jose, in the South Bay. So Santa Clara County in South, and I had multiple male human trafficking victims. Very, very difficult to find service providers for them. That is the one thing that we kept right into with females. I have somewhere for you to go, right? That night, I have somewhere for you to go. With my male victims, very hard to find them somewhere to go, somewhere for them to feel safe. So I agree, that complete gap. And I think a lot of reasons behind that, but I would agree with what you said.
Yeah. I don't have much to add that way. There is a need, and it's through the development and through partnerships like this that we can start approaching it. But I agree, in the same way that I kind of know how to deal with where I should send someone, or at least, who generally to send them to, there is this sort of gap in service. And I don't have a great answer for you otherwise that way.
Thank you so much, Agent. My question is, I'm just curious, it's just going in my head. What about those minors or young adults or incarcerated and that can possibly have that kind of extortion in the system? How do you handle that, and what is the consequence?
So they're like in general hall, or they're in jail, they're being extorted. Like everything, we just need a report.
But what if they're so afraid?
And that's something.
They're in there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you saying that they're being victimized by somebody in custody with them?
Yeah.
So then at that point, it would probably be more. For federal, we need some type of interstate nexus. And so if it's for any type of hands-on offense for the majority part, we don't have any jury
that would almost certainly come to a district attorney's office. I'm looking at my team. I don't know of a case where we have had that. I know that we have had survivors of sexual abuse who have been in custody, who we have interviewed for other kinds of cases, right? So maybe they are in there for shoplifting or vandalism or gang activity, and while they were in custody, we became aware of allegations. And in that case, much like Erin from my office was talking about, we can interview them at the Courage Center, which is Napa County's accredited location. Sometimes they get fussy and don't want to move someone out of it, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way, simply that it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes they don't want to necessarily move them out of the detention facility and we will come to them. It's not ideal, but that has happened in the past. Those are rare. Not that what's happening is rare, because I don't know that we have good numbers on that necessarily, but those kinds of situations have happened during my career here. But they are very unique. Those are very unique.
Thank you so much. Just curious.
Of course. Allison?
I have one question. I know we spoke about a lot of social media platforms and not super informed on. Are they working with FBI to get those accounts down, or
The
like?
question is whether or not social media platforms are working with the feds. I'll let you deal with that.
It depends on the platform. Also, depends on the platform. I will say there is federal law that if they come across or any type of CSAM or any type of extortion is reported to them, they are mandated by federal law to report to NCMEC. So they should at the very minimum be reporting to NCMEC. And we do, I mean, I don't know the numbers, but we do see those reports daily, so we know that they are doing it.
Any other questions? One more.
So I will say that federal, on the bureau side, the question is if the reporting party is undocumented, essentially are we going to deport them? No. Because the short answer is no. We don't, on the bureau side, we don't, if you're a victim, we treat you as a victim, and we don't then turn you into a subject on the immigration side, if that makes sense. So if you're undocumented, not wrong. Like we're not, you can come to us, nothing will happen based upon your status. It'll happen only based upon your victimization. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And that's true at the district attorney's office. There is no impediment to the provision of service. There is not a time at the DA's office where we need to know about your status. It comes up in very rare cases. If someone is trying to argue they're only reporting this to get an immigration benefit, sometimes that'll come up in the evidence. I'll